Greetings out there, and welcome to another episode of Tell It Like It Is. I'm your host, Morris Man, and my co-host is Mr.
Joseph Spencer.
How are you today, sir?
I'm up, I'm alive.
You're
trying
still
to get
here, that's a
healthy.
good thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so today we're going to do, as usual, a very interesting topic, and the name of the topic is Young Black Men. What's up with the hair? Now, initially on the surface, when you view this video and you're a young guy, you're just saying, these are two old farts that just tripping on new fashion. No. There's a lot. Your dress code says a lot about you. Before you even open your mouth, people see you visually and they form an opinion, whether it's a good opinion or accurate one or not. And so you want to make sure that that opinion is going to be a good opinion, because if I was living in the 70s, Joe, and my future me went to the 70s and told me about some things that's going to be taking place in 2015, 16, I wouldn't believe it. If my future self would say to myself, hey, Morris, man, in the future, young guys ain't gonna be combing their hair, and they're millionaires and not combing their hair, or you're gonna pay for bottled water, or you're gonna be paying for water. I would have never believed that back in the 70s, but it's ridiculous, But I'm gonna say this and then turn it over to Joe to get his opinion. It's interesting to see this, and I'm gonna make this statement because years ago I was employed with the federal government, and I was working in banking. And what was wonderful about that job is I got to meet people all around the world. We have these conferences, and people would come in from Africa, England, you name it. They would come in and take part in these conferences. So one year I met a gentleman from Kenya, I believe, and we struck up a good conversation, and we hit it off right off from day one. And I felt comfortable enough to ask him these questions, and I said, be honest with me. He said, sure. And I said, what do people in your country think of black people in this country? And he touched on a lot of things, and one of them was this that I already kind of knew, and I just tried to get confirmation as far as we in this country as black people don't have our own identity. We walk around here with a head nappy, our head braided, our heads in dreads, and these styles are from other countries. We mimic everybody else, but don't have our own identity, unique stamp. And it's like, I totally agree. There's nothing wrong with embracing your heritage, but we're like 400 plus years separated from Africa. So we're not Africans. I don't, I guess acknowledge this new tag that they gave us, African American. I'm not African American. I'm not African. I'm just American, So it's just interesting how people want to give you labels, and you want to run with things that are taking place in other countries as far as cultures, but not creating your own. What are your thoughts, Joe?
There's this thing called assimilation. They did it to the American Indian, they did it to black people. When I was a child, the latest hair fashion for men and women, women got perms and men got their hair permed and straightened. It was called a process. When I was 12, 13 years old, the first man I saw was dreadlocks. I'm 68 years old, so that's, 55 years ago. I was interested in his new hairstyle because I've never seen it before in my life, and he explained to me that dreadlocks was a black thing, and it was from the islands and Africa. Being a young black man, I was tired of getting my head sheared. They sheared your head like a sheep once a week to go to church. Black hair at that time was nasty, nappy hair. Like Morris said, hair at that time, these hairstyles were not for fashion. It was a political statement, a statement of being proud of what you are and your heritage. Now, it's a fashion statement. My sister had to hit me too. A lot of these young black men and older black men my age are going out here and getting dreadlocks attached to their heads so they could have these braids and these up push hairdos with braids on it.
And let me just interject, and you can continue. If I'm not mistaken, the majority of that dread thing, you don't wash your hair.
You can't. You don't wash your hair.
You walk around with the dirty, nasty scalp and the smelly scalp. It's not hygienic.
It's not hygienic, no. And if you have one, you better have some servants. If you got a boyfriend with 40 pounds of hair on his head, ladies, I don't know how you sleep with him. I'd rather have a bald-headed woman than a woman with dreads. I'm serious, because I've been going through it. I knew women who had dreadlock, they armpits. Like I said, at one time, black hair was bad hair. When I grew my natural, my school teacher called my mother and told her, if you don't have any money to get this boy haircut, I'll send you $1.25 so you can have it done. My mother immediately started getting on my case about my hair. Get your hair cut or get the hell out.
There's nothing is going to replace this. I mean, I know fashions come and go, but some things are here to stay. And with that, and one of those things is to stay very neat and groomed. You know, because I guess I had the foresight when I was a young man that I fared pretty well with the ladies because I dressed a certain way. I looked presentable. You know, I kept my hair cut, I kept my mustache trimmed, I kept my clothes clean and ironed. You know, I wasn't trying to jump on these fashions that made me look like a damn tramp or bum. You know, because I'm looking at, you know, the NBA players now. These are millionaires. And half of these guys don't comb their hair. There's nothing, I don't care. There's never going to be a time in life where nappy and unkempt is going to be cool or attractive. I'm sorry. Because I had a friend of mine's son who goes to high school. I said, do us a favor. Survey the young girls in your class. Because, I mean, we're older men and our perceptive of things is going to be different from a young female. And we asked him to go do a survey at his school and ask these girls, do you like that nappy hair stuff? And most of them, 98% of them said no. 2% just was falling into the fashion thing. Yeah, it's cool and it's the happening thing, but it's like, who are you dressing for now? Because young guys back then, they life centered around looking good to the ladies. Now it's like your pants sagging, you look like a bum, your hair needs a combing and a cut. Ain't nothing cool about that. Ain't nothing attractive about that.
When I grew my natural, there were no hair products out for black men. Like I said, I grew my natural out in maybe 62 or 63. By the time the 70s got here, there was hair picks, afro sheen, flippo sheen. It became a commodity thing. Bobby shops went out of business, you know.
I remember in the 80s, barbershops took a dip in profit because everybody's getting curls.
Everybody getting curls.
And it was looking good. And then you got people now look back on it and say that was dripping and all that, but you weren't saying that when you were wearing it in the 80s. It's interesting how you want to change your perspective after the fact. You know, now it's not cool. But this is just purely our opinion on things because I'm looking at the NBA players now and I'm saying to myself, there should be some type of guideline and rules and regulations to work with because we have it at work. You can't, if you have a corporate job, you can't come to work on Monday in blue jeans. You know, so it should be the same thing applied to these NFL players because these young guys emulate them. You know, and it's like, okay, these guys are millionaires, so they can kind of do what they want. They've made it, but what about you? The average person, you can't come to work looking like an NBA player or a rock star because that's not within your job structure and guideline. And it should be the same thing with the NBA because they're getting out of control now. That they should set in place where, hey, you can't come on the court with half your hair shaved and the other wild up and sticking, you know. And people might want to scream about freedom or whatever. You do have freedoms, but you know what? You also have an obligation to your job. And if you can't comply to the rules and regulations, maybe you need to find another job.
Well, back in the 60s doing
But just let me also interject that and say this. It's important for these young folks not to get caught up in this NBA rock star thing because, I mean, these are just our opinions, but, you know, as far as young folks emulating these guys that have already made it, they're millionaires, you can't come to work with your hair looking like that. You know, it's hard enough being a black person, a young black man, to get employed, and now you're doing things that are going to kind of make it even more difficult. You know, because again, we're not just two older guys hating on the fashion. We're not. Your appearance says a lot, and you will get a certain weight as far as moving up in life. You can advance a lot of times on your appearance, because again, before people even know who you are and you open your mouth, they size you up. They look at you and they can kind of form an opinion whether it's accurate or not as far as what they think of you. You know, that's one thing that my father always instilled in me. Don't leave out of this house looking like, you know, you about to go to the bathroom or to the backyard and do some, you know, garden work. You know, look presentable, even if you're going to the mailbox, you know. I'm not saying put a suit on to go to the mailbox, but look presentable. Because I see people now at the post office, they look like they're at home.
They got pajamas on.
Yeah, pajamas on. I seen this guy at the store 2 weeks ago and had his hair in a bun. And it's one thing to have your hair combed up like women where it's combed real nice and bun on top. This hair was nappy in a bun. And I'm like, what's going on with our dress code? But I kind of pinpoint this back to foundation, because foundation is Everything originates to me from foundation. Good mother in the house, good father in the house, teaching you right and wrong, putting you in the right direction, guiding you. Instead of daddy's not here, never been married to mom. You know, mom got pregnant at 17 at her mom's house, had you, and now her and grandmama trying to raise you, and there's no man to kind of balance it out. Because again, my father and my mother would not let me walk out the house with my hair wild, my clothes hanging and raggedy and wrinkled. You know, they didn't play that.
You know, he's used the word 3 times, fashion. These hairstyles at 40, 45 years ago didn't have anything to do with fashion. I don't understand how it became a fashion statement. It was a statement of being proud in your black skin and what your hair is. What you are, what you were born with, without assimilating a code with somebody else. Now, back in the 60s and the early 70s, a lot of young black women, black men, they were stifled from getting jobs because they had a natural and didn't have their hair permed or straightened. Well, the young black women did. The average young black man just wore a cropped hairstyle. And then it became, natural became accepted in the business world because, hey, it wasn't right, it wasn't legal, you know, to discriminate somebody to somebody the way they were born.
Yeah.
But after the 70s, hey, it just went stupid.
Yeah.
You know, basically all this hair stuff out here is to put monies in a certain amount of people's pockets. You would be amazed how much money even a man spends on his head if he has dreadlocks and he want to keep it up.
Let me ask you a question, Joe, because here's the answer to my question. Answer this question: if you were 24 years old today, would you be wearing dreads, or would you be wearing your hair braided, or would you be wearing your head nappy? I know I wouldn't. I would have to veer away from the
norm.
The norm. And I'm like, I don't want to be this. This doesn't fit me. You know, I don't want the cops looking at me like he just like other little dread wearing or hoodie wearing dudes. Let me pull him over.
And at one time you weren't identified with being a hood if you had dreadlocks or natural. You weren't identified with that. Well, you identified being a Black Panther.
But the answer to your question would be what? If you were a 24-year-old guy, would we walk around now with your head all nappy?
No, for one reason, some of the hairstyles I like, especially on women.
Yeah. And some of them I need. I mean, when I start to see some of the NBA players wearing nicely needed braids with their hairline, it looked nice. But it's still inappropriate for what you're doing to me, you know? But that's just, again, more as man's opinion.
When I had heard a statement that Michael Jackson made the natural popular. Now, I thought about that. I said, well, maybe he did because he was on TV in front of magazines.
And he's in the entertainment industry. And the entertainment industry have a very loose dress code, which is understandable, but it's not the dress code of an average working businessman.
But I begin to understand that statement. I'm 10, 11 years older than Michael Jackson. And when I was 13 years old, he was 2. So if I was wearing a natural before Michael Jackson became Michael Jackson, well, the whole concept of wearing a natural changed. It became a fashion statement, like pumps or skinny jeans and hip huggers. You know, it's tripped out, but you still have people, a handful of people making money off of your head.
To me, the name of the game is this. We already, as black people in this country, already got issues from the day we were born. We're not going to be totally accepted. We're going to be secondary citizens. We're going to be targeted by the police in some instances. And so when you become a young man, you should start to think like this. Okay, I'm going to do whatever I need to do personally to make sure that I get people off me, keep people off me,
right.
Not become like everybody else and be bothered. You know, that's how I would think. You know, and one of the first things that you would do is make sure that your dress code is acceptable. Forget about the guys in the hood that think you a square, because you're not worried about them. They're not going to be ones to put food on your table and put money in your pocket. It's going to be your employer. So that should be your focus, not what the guy down the street think, because you could care less what he thinks.
In other words,
and then let me just say this. And then also for you young women, because we talked about this the other day as far as our other show, minimum wage. Stop trying to start a family before you start a career to make money. You know, and then you crying and complaining that you're not making enough. And of course you're not making enough as far as you know, you didn't go to college, don't have a job skill set, and you make working a minimum wage job, and you got 3 kids you can't take care of. We can change that by not putting ourselves in those situations, you know, and that's what we should do. Not try to put ourselves in those situations, because once you get in those situations, it's difficult to have a very comfortable, non-chaotic life.
Oh,
But it's just these culture things that we have to make adjustments to, because again, don't create a lifestyle for you that's not going to be beneficial for you, because again,
right. It's not beneficial to
right,
you.
because again, you can make these adjustments and not allow yourself to do certain things. Again, a good example is loading yourself up with all these children, with men that are not going to be in your life, not going to marry you, and you're going to struggle the rest of your life and pass it on to your next generation. Young black guys looking like hoodlums, and they're
not
not
a hoodlum.
hoodlums, but they look like hoodlums.
But why
And
would you
unless-
want to identify with a gang
It's a
bang?
fashion thing. Unless you carrying the sign saying, I'm just dressing like this, but I'm not, who knows what you are? And especially when it comes to law enforcement, you know, they look at you sometimes and size you up, and that sizing you up might not be accurate at all. But you have to try to put yourself in a situation mentally and physically to grow and look presentable and look non-threatening.
To grow.
And that's not a sign of selling that. That's a sign of using your brain.
I said, I'm an American, and you're an American, and the only difference is the way I dress and the way I speak and the color of my skin. And if you had never sat down and spoke with me, you wouldn't have realized that Americans are Americans. Now, if a foreigner came in this room, no matter what he was dressed like or what color his skin, you knew he was a foreigner.
Yeah.
But
And
that's called
biologically-
stereotyping.
Yeah, and biologically, internally, we are identical. The
Yeah.
only difference is color of our skin, color of our eyes, texture of our hair. But
And hearsay stories.
inside, we are all the same. There's nothing different about me versus my white counterparts internally.
No, don't get us wrong.
But it's
now.
a cultural thing.
It's a
that
culture
We're about to
thing. Now,
sign
see-
out because we're running out of time here. I just wanted a quick closing statement, and then I turn over to Joe, and he quick closing statement, we shut it down. This whole dress code or this hair thing, be aware of how it's going to have repercussions, because again, you want to look your best to impress your employees, because your job is your lifestyle. It determines where you live at. It determines what you drive. It determines how you can provide for your family. Instead of the guy down the street, because his hair nappy, you think it's a fashion statement, you should go out there and get your hair nappy. Let him live his life, and you live your life, and make the adjustments so you can succeed in life and be productive, instead of having people look at you and think you're a hoodlum or a criminal and try to treat you like one, even when you're not. Turn over to Joe.
If you need somebody to emulate, don't emulate some brother with dreadlocks, smoking blunts, and drinking beer all day long. Emulate a black man, a Jewish man, a Polish man, or whatever man that's successful, giving, warm, and honest.
You learn
you
by
know?
example.
You learn by example.
Okay, so on that note, we're going to sign off. And as always, these shows are about love. It's not about bashing anybody or putting people on blast. It's about educating our young folks. It's to say, hey, I know you think this is the best thing for you to do, but it's not. So perhaps you need to make some adjustments so you can be productive. So again, as always, I thank you for coming to my channel. Tell it like it is. And as always, keep thinking.